Hello, my name is David Stevenson, and in this video I'm going to walk you through your journey to call a London Market API. The best place to go to start is developer.lloyds.com website, where you will find details on the API you would like to call, and lots of other information about the steps you need to progress through to calling an API. You should find information that will help you to be able to estimate how much work it is going to take to call the API, and what changes you will need to make to your application in order to do so. You will find information on how the security protocols interact with the API and how much that will affect your application. In order to call a London Market API, you need to get your organization to sign up to the Limos Common Services. There are links on the developer portal site to the Limos sign-up process. Limos Common Services provides 3 identical API gateways, or environments, which are used for different purposes. They are called Sandbox, Preprod, and Prod. The Sandbox environment is used to develop new APIs and for onboarding new organizations to the API gateway. The Preprod environment is used for market acceptance testing and other acceptance testing before your application is deployed into production. The registration process takes some time, as you need to register your organization, you need to register for specific environments, you need to get a number of users onboarded onto common services, and you need to register your certificate on one or more applications. You don't want developers sitting waiting for registration tickets to go through processing, so plan to get this registration phase done first, having this completed before your development staff actually plan to get going. Once you've signed up for the API Gateway and Common Services with Limos, you then need to guest in some accounts, or service accounts, to Limos so that the gateway knows about your users. Once you've done that, you will need to register both an application and a certificate. Application registration follows 2 forms. You either are registering a native application, which is used by service accounts where there is no UI, or you're registering a web application, which does have a user interface where ordinary users will log in using their own accounts. Calls to the API gateway must provide a client certificate, which is used during setup of the HTTPS connection to the gateway. This certificate enables the gateway to determine who is calling it from an application perspective, and which APIs that application is allowed to call. If this is your first API call through the API Gateway, you'll want to initially sign up for the Sandbox environment. There are a number of different test harnesses deployed on that environment, which will allow you to quickly call APIs and see what happens. You will need to register for a Web Application ID, a Native Application ID and secret, register your certificate, register for your specific API and test harness. You will need to add a username to the test harness database if it has one. You should now be able to try out the demonstration UI. This calls the Test Harness API in the sandbox. We provide Postman collections for most APIs. You need to configure the sample Postman collection with your native app ID and secret, certificate and key, and username and password, and then try out calling the API using each of the different steps provided in the Postman collection. The next step is to use the Swagger doc, which you can download from the developer.lloyds.com site for your API, to generate a client stub. Using the example code provided and code snippets, you should be able to wire up your client stub to call the API using the same native app ID and secret, certificate and key, and username and password, and replicate what you could do through Postman. The next step is to write a test application using an HTML user interface. With the HTML web app, you will need to use the web app ID, not the native ID that you've been using up to this point. Once you have successfully called the API from a web application, you can go on to develop the remainder of your application features. Once your application is functionally complete and working successfully against the Sandbox test harness, you can move on to the Preprod environment, where you can deploy your application with new app IDs and a new certificate. The Preprod environment hosts a production equivalent implementation of the API, and you can then perform more complex integration testing, user acceptance testing, and market acceptance testing. Deployment to production will require registration against the production API gateway with its own app ID and certificate. Please visit the developer.lloyds.com site for more videos on how to call the Lloyds APIs.